Hello Year 11s! As promised, I've got the next bit. So we've done Cromford. Cromford is now behind us in terms of revision, you'll be glad to know. We may do more practice questions, we may not. It really doesn't matter. The general feeling I'm getting from what you're providing is that you know what you are doing. It's a question of detail, and the right detail, rather than explaining the bits that don't matter for the question. And that's just a matter of practice. Don't worry. The trajectory of all the answers I'm looking at is correct. You're all heading in the right direction. Don't forget, if you haven't already, you need to submit the second of those questions. We did one as timed. Thank you to all of you that handed those in. I know there's some still missing. Please get around to that as soon as you can. And we did one that was not timed, and that I gave you a full week to do. So if you haven't submitted it, here's a reminder, please get those in. But that need not detain us here. I promised a different topic, and we were going to do Elizabethans. And so, with the incredible work in producing these resources from Mr Podlowski and Mr Cuthbert, I've monkeyed with them, of course I have, but thank you to those excellent practitioners of their craft for providing me with the basic ideas behind it. And you'll be glad to know, therefore, it's not just my sort of thing. I have a lot to get through, and as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit excited. So, without further ado, let's begin by looking at this. One of my favourites. What connects these four images? We've got three smitters on a red background in a shield shape. We've got Raleigh, the bike manufacturer. We've got a rap artist who's been a meme, and I honestly don't know what that is. I think it's a football thing, but I have a vague notion. So, if you're going to play along, you pause the video and you work out what connects these four images and why. Okay, that's long enough. If you haven't paused the video in that time and come up with an answer, I don't really know what to do. What connects these four images? Obviously, it's the Elizabethans. Why? Well, because that is what's it called? Oh, my brain's gone. Is that the symbol for Essex? I think that's the symbol for Essex. That there is Raleigh. Walter Raleigh, yes. The joke never ends. That, of course, is Drake, the meme himself, as in Sir Francis Drake. And I can't remember what the fox is. I think it's something to do with football. Please tell me in the comments of the show my homework task and point out how ridiculous I am in not knowing the answer to my own question, because I have genuinely forgotten. Whoops-a-daisy, that's not right. Sorry, that was a different thing. Clickety-click. Onwards. So, we start this with I was Elizabethan clever clogs. Now, with the PowerPoint the way it is, I've attached the answers, sorry, not the answers, the questions, but not the answers in a PowerPoint to the show my homework task. So you've had a chance to look at these questions, or if you haven't, you've got a chance to look at them now if you wish. But don't worry, they're all on the video. It's up to you how you do this. It's designed to help you. I do like the image. Thank you, Mr. Pop, for that amazing image. I don't know how he photoshopped it. I am rubbish at Photoshop. Let's see. Round one. You've got to match the boxes. Round one is all about Elizabeth's power. There are 8 boxes on the screen. There are 4 titles and 4 explanations. So what you've got to do, and you'll pause the video in a moment, I'll say when, is match those descriptions to the correct box of what they are describing. The 4 points are patronage, court, privy council and state. So, pause the video and have a go. I'm going to assume that's long enough for you to have paused the video and had a go at the task. Let's go through them in order. Which box matches with patronage? It is, of course, a system in which people are promoted due to personal ties of loyalty, or demoted if they don't show loyalty. And that's how Elizabeth maintained her power in her court, by lifting up those she liked and pushing down those she didn't. And it meant that if you wanted to stay in your place in court, you had to like Elizabeth, and Elizabeth had to like you, meaning she had tremendous personal power in both her court and her parliament and her advisors, and indeed just generally. It was a massive power she had. Next one is court. Which one matches that? It's that one. It's a gathering of nobility and gentry around the Queen's person. Wherever the Queen was where court was held. And court was supposed to be a spectacle. If you remember, there was dancing going on. And who she danced with and what dances she did with them was a key part of people getting their way. So all these very powerful families and very powerful nobles turned up to court to show their face and woo the Queen somehow. You might remember in the video we watched about the Earl of Essex doing that bizarre thing where he pretended to be dead, and it amused her. It caused her to titter, and that is genuinely how it happened and how he got his high rank and position. What is the Privy Council? I called it Parliament, but there is a Parliament. It is the close advisors to Elizabeth, selected by the Queen herself, and they can be removed by the Queen herself. She used her power of patronage, and these 12 or more advisors would be meeting to discuss the issues of the day, and she could use them to bounce ideas off, or to find out what they thought, take advice, or simply tell them what she wanted them to do. And if you remember, it was Lord Burleigh who was in charge, and then he wasn't, and it was Walsingham who was in charge, and then he died, and Burleigh went back, and then he died, and then it was Burleigh's son, Pygmy, if you remember. And all of that carried on. The Privy Council were incredibly powerful, but they were absolutely under the control of the Queen. So she maintained the power over them, which of course means the last one, the state, is everything else. It's rather than the Queen. This refers to the nation and government. It's all the things that are there when monarchs change. So if you can kill a monarch, or remove them from the picture, which I realise would have been treason, anything that remains and keeps England going as a kingdom is the state. In the modern world, I am an agent of the state. If the government changes, I don't, because school will always be here. Next round. In this one, I provided you with 4 boxes, in this case in blue, because as if it were a card sorting class. And in this one, you write your own definitions of these terms. This shouldn't be as hard as the last one, except the difficulty is raised by the fact you're having to dredge your notes to find it. So go find your books, pause the video, and have a go at defining these 4 areas of power. Okay, that's long enough to pause the video. Let's see whether you were right. Parliament, therefore, is, of course, a meeting of elected MPs. Now, who voted those MPs in? Members of Parliament, by the way, is what MP stands for. Changes over time, and at this point it's mainly nobles. They don't have an incredible amount of power, but they have to be called, and Elizabeth recognised that. They had to agree taxes, even if she could just tell them what to vote, and generally speaking she did, and control them, because if they wanted to talk about something she didn't want to talk about, she could have people executed or arrested. And she did. There's that strange case of the guy that had his hand cut off, for example. So Parliament has power, but Elizabeth pretty much runs the show. You don't need more than that definition, though, if you haven't got more than that definition. What is a Secretary of State? It is, of course, a person employed by the Queen to run England's affairs. They are head of the Privy Council, and I've already mentioned the Secretaries of State in her rule and her reign that we need to know about. There's Walsingham, there's Burleigh, and there's Burleigh's son, also confusingly called Burleigh, because he's Lord of Burleigh. That's how it works. It's not a surname. And yeah, that's basically it. You will find that in your notes, and you will find something that we did on different Secretaries of State using an extract from the textbook, which I'm assuming you've got stuck into your books somewhere. If you haven't, let me know, and I'll get a scan for you. What's a Puritan? It's a devout Protestant. Devout means someone who believes and believes hard, and they hold extreme views. Extreme! I can do that now. Woo! I can do that now. Sorry, I should be doing it. Yeah, no. So it's like extreme. Sorry. Sorry. That's I got excited. So yeah, they hold extreme religious views. These are the people that really don't go in for things like Christmas, for example, or birthdays. And they were a thorn in the side of Elizabeth because they wanted an end to Catholicism, and she wanted to try and sort of merge them together to stop people fighting the whole time. And they just wanted to burn more Catholics. So the Puritans are a bit of a problem for Elizabeth, despite being weirdly on her side. They also wear black and white in images. So if you see someone wearing black and white in an otherwise colourful image in a mini exam or even a mock, then they're probably a Puritan. Progresses and pageants. Indeed, these are the Queen's processions around the country where she could turf nobles out of their houses and stay in them like, I don't know, she was stopping over in some random travelodge, except she doesn't have to pay and the nobility pay. And it was a good way of showing your loyalty. Remember, we had that wedding picture, the portrait that was painted, that was a wedding, ostensibly, of the son of the nobleman involved, but it was Queen Elizabeth who took centre stage, and he put it up in his house when she came to stay, in a desperate effort, which paid off, to get patronage and power. Or to be receiving patronage, I suppose. He didn't get it. He was patronised. All right, now we need to fill in the blanks, and there are multiple blanks to fill in. So here are the 3 areas with blanks to fill in. Pause the video and have a go at filling in the blanks yourself. Okay, let's see where we go. Elizabeth took her blank very seriously. Power or image. Image in this case. 135 paintings survived, but she did little to spread her image. Instead, nobles and courtiers had them produced as part of blank patronage. Literally just mentioned this. How much control Elizabeth had on a local level depended on the blank of the blank. Justices of the peace. Well done, Jerry. In your local area. They kept order, and there were blank of them per county. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten to look that up. I think... no, now I have to look that up. You'll have found this, and you'll have already paused, whereas I'm having to look it up in real time because I don't know how to edit or pause these videos. So good to know, even I've got to look these things up. It's in here, I think. It's not. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. 40. There are 40 in each county, not 20. I do apologise. Elizabeth had both loyal and rebellious subjects. Her 2 most famous Secretaries of State were Lord Blank and Sir Blank Blank. Lord Blank, of course, is Lord Burleigh, B-U-R-L-E-I-G-H, Burleigh, and Sir Francis Walsingham, Francis, F-R-A-N-C-I-S, Walsingham, W-A-L-S-I-N-G-H-A-M, Walsingham. These were loyal, whereas the blank 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 led a failed rebellion against the Queen in 1601. It's the Earl of Essex. The one, her toy boy. Toy boy? Doesn't really matter which way around. She liked him, and he ended up leading a rebellion against her, and he died for it. Round 2. Religious settlement. Basically, it's the second topic. And it's just checking whether or not you've got these things in your notes. So don't worry. If you're having to check your notes for these, as you've just spotted, I'm having to check my notes for these. So, again, same drill as before. You've got to match the descriptions on the left of your screen. No, right of your screen. Left? Right of your screen? Right of your screen. With the what they're describing on the right of your screen. So, pause the video and have a go at matching them up. Okay, that's long enough. Let's see whether you are right. Jesuits are an order of priests who are trained to train or convert people to Catholicism, train other priests. So Jesuits are like uber Catholics. They're like the Catholic version of the Puritans in Protestantism. They are extreme Catholics. I didn't move the camera that time because it wobbled around a bit too much last time, and I'm not entirely certain I've fixed the lines in the background. But they're like uber priests, and they were banned regularly from England by various monarchs of a Protestant hue, and Elizabeth is no exception. She bans them from England, and in so doing really upsets one of their best mates, the King of Spain, Philip II. Let's move on, which may have sparked the armadas of the 1580s, and indeed the entire Anglo-Spanish War that wasn't over even when she died. Protestants. They are Christians who no longer associate with the Catholic Church. They believe that, well, basically the Pope has no power, and you can't sell your way, you can't buy your way into heaven, and they were all about the Bible. Sola Scriptorum, everything from the Bible. If it's not in the Bible, didn't happen. That's the Protestant view. Seminary priests are young English Catholics who were trained to support Catholics in England and do so in secret. They hide in priest holes. Don't go searching for that online. Basically, they're put up by Catholic families, they're protected, and they do their level best to serve Catholics in England after Catholic Mass is essentially outlawed. Elizabeth turned a blind eye to them for the most part. As long as in public these powerful people or lowly Catholics turned up to Protestant church services and did the prayers for the Queen and all that carry on, she didn't care. The interesting thing is that it does get more and more dangerous to be a Catholic as time progresses, because she surrounds herself with Protestants who really feel that the Catholics could be the enemy within, and therefore they need to be dealt with. Certainly during 1588 Armada, the Catholics of both Scotland and Ireland were absolutely keen on the idea of meeting the army from the Armada and allowing them to invade England. So it was a source of constant worry that these people might work with foreign powers to bring down the government. By this point, it's obvious what the answer is for recusants. They're Catholics who refused to attend Protestant services and remained loyal to the Pope. And these recusants were considered deeply, deeply worrying by the government of the day. Whether or not they were ever felt as worrying by the Queen herself is almost irrelevant. For the purpose of the exam, you just have to know that they are worrying potential traitors. They might not be, they could be utterly loyal, but the state, remember that term, viewed them as potential traitors. Okay, for this one, same drill as before, you've got to add your own definitions of these four terms. So, pause the video and have a go, and when you're ready, come back and look at the answers. Okay, that's long enough. Let's see what the answers are. For the Babington plot, then, it is the plot which led to the arrest of Mary, Queen of Scots. Note, not the same as Queen Mary, she's dead. Mary, Queen of Scots is a Scottish queen. And the Babington plot was where she wrote that letter essentially agreeing to murdering the Queen, and in so doing implicated herself in a plot to kill the Queen, and thus something had to be done. It ended up with her execution, which could have been the trigger, not the spark, the trigger, the thing that actually brought it about, to the Anglo-Spanish War, because by murdering a crowned head of Europe, and in theory, the next in line to the English throne, and a Catholic to boot, Elizabeth had pretty much gone against what everyone expected in Europe. I mean, I think they expected that sooner or later she'd have to act against the heir to the throne being a Catholic, but it gave them the pretext to be upset, and Philip II was looking for a pretext to be upset, frankly. The Spanish Armada is one of many. The 1588 Armada is simply the first, and it was a fleet sent by Philip II to pick up the Duke of Parma and his troops from the Netherlands to invade England, and if that had happened, England would have been sunk. We didn't have an army capable of resisting the Spanish army under the Duke of Parma. When we say the Spanish Armada, we're referring to that one, but you'll remember there's about 7 other things. So he keeps trying. This becomes a big deal for English people, and nowadays it's what most people remember, the Spanish Armada, but there are many of them. And as good historians, you need to keep that in mind, so that when you're looking at interpretations that say, oh look, it's the Spanish Armada, it's a big deal, you remember that, yeah, it is, but it wasn't at the time. The Recusancy Act, there are other things, by the way, that deal with the Catholics, but this one was the one I was asking for. It allowed the government to take 2/3 of Catholics who hadn't paid fines land. So 2/3 of the land owned by Catholics who didn't pay their fines for not turning up to Protestant church could have, 2/3 of the land was taken in forfeit for what they'd not paid in fines. And the fines kept going up, and they essentially bankrupted some very wealthy, noble families who refused to convert from Catholicism or even just to turn up to the Protestant church services. What's the Act of Uniformity? Well, this actually predates our course. It goes before the course begins. If you remember, we start in 1580. But the exam board have made very clear that they will happily set questions using it. And so although it's outside the time period, you need to know what it is. And luckily, you do know what it is. And hopefully you found it in your notes. It stated that all should worship in the same way, hence the Act of Uniformity, with a book of common prayer that was Protestant in nature and carried within it prayers for the Queen. Thus you sort of asserted your loyalty to the Queen in a Protestant setup, meaning that Catholics could do it if they wanted, but in so doing would also have to deny their Catholicism. If you did not turn up and do these prayers in a public place like a church, you would be fined for not doing it. So no, it's not execution or forced recantation of your belief. Recantation means getting rid of it. But it does try and make it more difficult not to do it. Elizabeth's stated aim was not to make windows into the hearts of men. Basically, believe what you like, but in public, support your Queen. And it kind of worked. It maybe got a lot of Catholics who just didn't have the money or the time or the inclination to spend the rest of their lives fighting against the state. Alrighty, we're back to filling in the blanks. So here are 3 more paragraphs where we have to fill in the blanks, and hopefully I won't have to look anything up this time. Catholics were a threat to Elizabeth because they opposed her on religious grounds and might invite nations such as blank and blank to invade. Spain and France. Well done. Thanks, Joanna. If successful. I didn't spot that when I was copying this across. I do apologise. If successful, they might place blank, 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 blank on the throne. It's Mary, Queen of Scots. Well done. Thanks, Poppy, and thank you, Eve. You got that straight away. Over time, Elizabeth's treatment of Catholics became blank. Harsher. Thanks, Emily. You got that straight off. Although she never made being a Catholic illegal, they could be punished with blank, blank, or even blank. It's fines and prison and death. One of the reasons why Elizabeth's policies towards Catholics changed is because blank became more powerful. Puritans. This was a result of the money and Parliament. I've missed it. I guess Parliament would be a better word. Puritans works, by the way, but Parliament is a better word because of what happens next. Elizabeth needed to raise money, it should say, in order to fight Spain. Of course it's Spain. Thanks, Gabby, you got that straight away. Or wars, if you prefer. Yeah, Spain works, but wars is more general, isn't it? Okay, round 3 is a caption competition, and I don't know what you're going to come up with. The idea is, here's an image, and all you've got to do is tell me what the caption is. Now, it can be amusing, it can be humorous, or it can be more historical in nature. It really doesn't matter. So each image will go up. I'll then pause myself, and you'll pause the video, coming up with an amusing caption, and then explain what's going on. So if you come up with an amusing caption that also manages to explain what you think is being shown, then that is amazing. So here's the first one. Pause and have a go at coming up with your own amusing caption that also shows what's going on. Okay, that's long enough. In this one, it's supposed to show patronage, and it's the idea of nobles showing fealty or loyalty to the Queen at court. You can also point out that we've got Walsingham, because that's a little bit, Burley, there's Walsingham, because Walsingham was an extreme Puritan. You can also point out the threat, and you can mention John Stubbs, who lost his hand. You could point out that this is Parliament. It is. Anything along those sorts of lines will be absolutely valid, and I'm assuming you come up with something that's amusing. Share them if you've got funny ones, and I'll mention them the next time we meet. This one, pause. Okay, that's long enough. What it actually shows is, apparently, Walter Raleigh returning from one of his voyages. But I would have accepted Sir Francis Drake on his circumnavigation and stealing gold from Spanish ships by means of piracy, or indeed any of the Elizabethan adventurers coming back and plying the Queen with gifts in order to justify their piracy and in order to gain favour so they can go and make money for themselves in their own way. All of those things would have been entirely valid. You could have also mentioned the fact that this is just how annoying it was for people like Spain, whose gold she's probably looking at right now. Also, constantly trying to get marriage to the Queen because it would show power and wealth. That's a standard trope with Queen Elizabeth. She's married to England. I don't know why I did that voice. Final one, again, come up with a caption. It can be as amusing as you like, as long as it shows what's going on. So pause. Okay, that's long enough. Obviously, this is the speech that was given after the Spanish Armada, where she exhorted her soldiers to fight for her and went down really, really well. Obviously, it's historically incorrect. She's not wearing armour in this one. And the idea that the soldiers were somehow really G'd up by it all. Of course, by this point, the danger of the Armada invading at that point, on the map, I mean, and that location had passed, and the soldiers ended up not being given anything, and many of them end up dead because they're just not fed well, and they end up sitting around and slowly starving to death, or not being paid because she couldn't really afford it. So, very stirring speech, very famous speech, goes down well in the idea and the myth of England. Pretty rubbish if you were there. And yes, the next thing we're going to do is going to be looking at mocks, but I think that's enough for a lesson on a Friday. And I'm hoping it's sparked you looking at your notes. I'm hoping it's made you look through, as it's made me look through my notes and remind me what was going on. And it's given you a sort of an intro, a sort of nice and not too pressured intro back into the idea of revision on the Elizabethans. We won't be spending long on the Elizabethans. I've got one more lesson of going through about how to revise, and then we'll do a practice set of questions on that, and they won't be too hard. They'll just be a reminder. In an exam, you'd get an hour on that, so I'll set that in a lesson. We'll talk through the answers, and then you'll go away and do that, not in time conditions, just to re-practice and check what you know. I mean, you're more than welcome to do it in time conditions. I can't stop you. But if you don't want to, please don't feel pressured. It's just to, as I say, remind you where your notes are, remind you that you know this, and remind you that you understand the technique, because you do. And yeah, that's my thinking. So on Monday, we'll be back. I'll go through the next bit, and then on Friday next, I'll set up the practice question. I think we'll do a standard lesson as we've been doing on Mondays. That seems to be going quite well. I enjoy them. I hope you do too. And we'll do that next bit together, so I can talk through the various bits in a bit more depth and be guided more by your questions. Because I think that's important. I think you having ownership and forcing me to go over the bits you want to go over is more useful than me making videos when it comes to revision. I mean, this works for revision because there's no way of doing things in a different order. It's simply a quiz, and this works quite well as a video. If you have been, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely rest of day. Enjoy your weekend, Year 11. You deserve it. Make sure you build in some relaxation and rest, and I shall see you at the start of the new week for the next team's lesson, when we'll go through what you need to know for a mock, because we are going to hold some mocks. I think that's important. And we'll see where we go after that. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now. Oh no, I've broken it. I'll try again. Bye-bye now.